Ready, Pete? All right. I'd like to call to order the Water and Sewer Commission meeting for Monday, June 1st. Looks like we have no one here for public participation. Billing issues, Steve, you want to go over any billing issues we may have?
We have two billing issues on the table. One is from the Davidson Brothers. And let's see if I have it here. Actually, it says it's attached, but it's not on my copy. But they were requesting a waiver of penalties. For this quarter. Is that anybody's package?
Yeah.
I have a copy of that. Thank you. And they're also requesting to defer payment on their quarterly bill until 45 days after they're allowed to reopen. And they're requesting this due to a loss of business revenue.
So we had that resolution that you put up, and I don't know what it said in there about something like this.
Well, I was tasked to put a form together,
Yeah.
and that's the form that
Yeah.
they used.
Okay.
And I don't recall, I think that was the end of the discussion as far as what the, it was just gonna be on I think, as,
Individual case by case.
yes, exactly.
So, you know, I just,
One thing, I think that they have previous relief from Davidson Brothers. This applied to the COVID.
What's that?
If you have a previous relief from a bill, does it apply to COVID-19? Because you don't second time, you usually don't get a relief the second time.
Right, I don't know if they've had prior relief, Davidson
I
Brothers.
don't recall.
well, I think that'd be up to you guys, as to what you wanna do with the commission.
I don't have a problem with, if no money in, no money out. I get that. I'm sitting here seeing this as one example. If this gets green lighted and then there's 30 of these pieces of paper sitting on the table next month, at what point can the department absorb that much either deferred payment or non-payment? The precedent seems pretty enormous here as to what's possible. And if they never come back, then I don't know. It seems like there's a lot here, but on this banana peel, and we need to step carefully. Nothing to do with Davidson's particularly, but I don't know. I could be nuts about that. You think that's a non-issue?
I mean, it's certainly a valid point. I mean, these are unprecedented times. I mean, Pete points out people that got prior relief, maybe you consider them separately, but it's, you guys know the criteria for prior relief. It's been a mistake or a leaking toilet or something. I mean, this is a whole new set of facts and circumstances for businesses and owners. So, I mean, that's gonna be up to the board on how you wanna handle it. I mean, the only issue I had when I reviewed this application is, why they're not using their PPP money. So they say they applied for it and they got it, and then there's an asterisk in the notation on the second page that's saying, we're waiting for the final rules to come out from the SBA before we use the PPP money, we may give it back. To me, and I've done a number of weekly online things to keep up with PPP because I've been advising people on it, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, when you put in for the PPP, it was 2.5 times your salary for an 8-week period. If you use 75% of it for authorized expenditures, it's a forgiven loan. And so Davison Brothers, with that money, would be able to pay their employees, mortgage payments, rent, anything like that. So I don't know, maybe there needs to be further inquiry. That's the only thing that I saw that was, and that's why I included that criteria in there. Because if PPP, or if people are getting PPP money, the whole idea behind that money was to keep everything going as much as possible, so I'm not sure why they didn't do.
I'm sure the usage has got to be way down. I mean, if they're not open, they can't be using a whole lot of water, I wouldn't think. They don't brew there anymore, to speak
Right.
of.
So this is his, let me get this right, this is his regular bill and he just doesn't wanna pay it because of the COVID, is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, it's not that he doesn't wanna pay it. He wants to put off payment without penalties. So the bill would be paid eventually, and I guess one of the problems I think that we had here is that this is a little open-ended. 'Cause we don't know for sure, when that reopening will be.
Well, what's he gonna consider opening, full opening or partial opening?
It's a great question.
I mean, what is open?
Yeah, it's gonna be partial, no question.
Right, but still, is that what we consider open, which could be next week, right?
And open could be takeout.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like he hasn't been doing takeout for some reason, but, yeah, so he's gonna be partially open even when they go, to the third, he won't open to the third level, but when they do that, it's gonna be still partial opening. So he's not gonna be up and running full time.
But is he gonna
Why don't we
argue
find out what he's doing with that? Why doesn't he use that PP money?
Okay. Want me to follow up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
What
good.
is,
Let's go
what
from
is the
there.
PPE mean?
What's that?
PPE? What does PPE mean?
PPP is the payroll protection program that was approved through Congress, through the SBA, and what it is a means by which if people maintain all their employees and hire employees back that they may have laid off early on in the process, if they spend 75% or more of that money for covering payroll and a couple other itemized permitted expenses, then it's not a loan, it is, well, it's a loan, but it's a forgiven loan. People don't have to pay the money back. And I'm,
So you wanna table it and have you?
Sure.
follow up?
I don't,
Get it back to me, Steve, so I
I
can-
wonder, if he's paying the employees.
So it's an 8-week program to pay your employees?
Yeah, but I wonder if he's paying the employees.
What's that?
I wonder if he's paying the employees.
Well, he'll have to rectify that, he'll have to justify it with the government, or else they'll make
He's probably gonna
him
have
pay
to
the
go
money
through an
back.
audit at some point.
If he isn't paying them, he'll have to pay the
He
money.
says he's not using the funds yet, so.
Another, direction towards, precedent, can people come and request this kind of relief and us have the right to say, let's sit down and look at your tax return or, your gross structure, zoomed out and see like, yes, you're paying your employees still, yes, or not, and see those kinds of things, or is that like, no, it's my private business, you can't-
Well, I think.
you can't do that?
I think inquiries like why aren't you using the PPP and things like that are reasonable, but I don't think getting into reviewing business records and business decisions like that, for two reasons. One, I don't think the board wants to get involved in that time-wise.
Right.
And two, I think that goes beyond what the inquiry would be. I think if, the board's willing to give forgiveness, I think getting an explanation here as to what he means by open and why he's not using the PPP makes sense.
Mhm.
Because if the money is sitting there and he's capable of using it, then why can't he use it to pay his water sewer bill?
Sure.
I wonder, one other thing I wonder, he's going out to, other restaurants that sell, alcohol. Why can't I can't see why he's had 100% loss, because income from other restaurants, should take care of it.
I don't think they have another restaurant.
No, he's selling, goods to other restaurants that are open.
They're distributing their beer, is what
Yeah,
he's saying.
but it's not like it used to be, cause he sold the majority of that business to those guys up there where Scateland used to be.
Yeah, so I
He has
don't,
very few customers.
I don't
And most of them
know.
are
Plus
closed.
who's getting beer with their takeout too, that's another.
Yeah, but he doesn't-
Yeah,
you
he's
don't
not doing
usually-
takeout, but I don't know that the brewery that's up in Queensbury and the restaurant are still the same entity anymore. There was an
But he
issue.
sold it.
Yeah, so so he's selling Davidson Brothers beer there, but I think he's getting it from the other entity. I don't think,
Oh.
so if you go into the, you know, Minogue's Beverage and you see Davidson Brothers beer on the shelf, that's not him.
Okay.
That's the brewery in Queensbury.
Okay.
So I'll follow up and find out what he means by open, and then, what the deal is with their use of the
Do you
PPP.
need a motion to table that?
Sure.
I'll make a
Second.
motion, we table it.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay,
So, the amount of the bill was 1,096, he's having credit for that, or 1,096 is the bill?
Says you're not a bill.
Maybe ask what the,
Well,
what the
something we
bill
can
is.
find out, won't
yeah, okay. Okay, the next one?
We also have a claim, I'll call it a request from Feigenbaum Cleaners, who wrote a letter, about a meter that was installed in 2000, the 2-inch water meter. They say there's a small leak on the meter from the beginning, and that they contacted the sewer department on a number of occasions. We were unable to, and that the department was unable to fix it. And the claim states that it caused the floor to rot out and a high pressure steam line. And we went out and supplied the flange for the meter and a small piece of pipe, and they had a plumber make the repair. We actually had no record of any calls at all on this. Our technician had been out there a while ago to replace the transmitter and didn't notice any leak. And when we got the call that they needed a flange to make the repair to the water line on their side of the meter, we provided that. So roughly 2 years before, we had replaced the transmitter, and nobody said anything to our technician about a leak, and he didn't notice one. So looking at the picture they provided of a flange, which would have been connected to a 2-inch meter, I can believe that that was leaking, but it was on the customer's side, and we have no record of any calls in advance on this one.
Is he looking for us to pay his repair bills, is that what he's looking for?
Yep.
So he's looking at roughly $1,550, give or take?
Yeah.
52 invoices?
No. We assume that's what he's asking for.
Well, the steam leak, I can tell you from past experience, steam does not leak from the outside in. The steam, the velocity, the pipe rots from the inside out. We had tons of steam in my last place of employment, never did I ever see a leak from the outside in. And the pipe should have been insulated, it was high pressure, whatever, I don't know what pressure he's calling, high pressure steam. But he probably had a leak in the steam pipe, pinhole or something that routed the floor. So I would say as far as the steam leak's done, that we don't give him anything on that. I mean, there's no way of proving, you know, if the floor, if he had a steam leak for a few years, a pinhole or something, that definitely could have routed that floor out. If it's high pressure, it would have blown a hole through it, so.
And, we don't have any records of any calls which we've been keeping since 2006, late 2006, when the city was again operating the water and sewer system. This meter was probably put in just before Earth Tech 2000, and you know, there may have been calls during that Earth Tech period, but nothing since then that's in our records.
So for 14 years, there have been no issues with it?
Or, you know, it may have been a dripping, I don't know.
But the leaks are on the customer side.
It leaks on the customer side.
I don't see us having any liability for that, to be honest with you.
Just to clarify, that when you say the customer side of the meter, do you mean like that flange was like bolted to the meter on their side, or is this flange like down the
That
pipe?
flange is bolted to the meter on their side.
I don't understand why several staff members looked at it, were able to find a leak. How can you do that?
But the leak was substantial enough to cause the floor to rot. It should have been pretty visible, I would think.
Yeah,
Well, like I said, I can't answer that question because in the period 2006 to date, late 2006, we don't have any records of any calls.
What would his next step be if we refuse this? I mean, he can always bring suit on it.
He'd have to bring a claim, but then there's notice provisions and, you know, and I think the risk on something like that is very low, given what Steve said about we're having records from 2006 to present that shows nothing, and then the technician was out there to replace the transmitter and didn't notice anything. I think it'd be very difficult for them to prove their case.
Okay.
Unless they've got, you know, timed recordings or,
Right.
you know.
Most of the city's liability should stop at the meter, right?
Right.
From there on, it's there. I mean, they got a valve, they can call a
Sure.
plumber and fix it. I mean, it's their neglect, not ours.
Right.
Well, the city's liability technically stops at the curb line.
Okay.
And we provide the meter which is installed inside the customer premises. So,
Any further discussion?
What happens, the part that we supplied them, that's usually what you do, or, because there was a leak on the side of the meter that, of their property. You usually supply the, fixed, part that,
we'll typically provide small parts to help out our customers.
yeah.
Especially, something like a meter flange is not something that is easily, you can't run down the, Home Depot or Lowe's and pick one up.
Yeah.
But we stock them, so, you know, we'll provide those to our customers.
I think you reject it now.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we deny the request for the adjustment.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. We'll go to the resolutions. The first resolution is approval of the Water and Sewer Board meeting minutes of May 4th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, the next is, the warrant. Are there any questions on the warrant?
Just these engineering bills back here, Stephen, I know there's, just so I can let it rest in my own mind.
Okay.
Pardon, Lagudas, there's a whole pile of them in there. What's that relating to?
These were invoices that, had been accumulating, which had never been paid for the, Upper Hudson River Revitalization Plan, which is the regional sewer study. And that is funded by a local government efficiency grant through the Department of State.
So
Yeah.
some of these go back a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, and,
But did we get a grant and now we're paying the bills out of the grant?
yeah,
Okay.
well, like most grants,
You have to pay it first, then
we
they'll-
pay the bills, and
And
then, we submit for reimbursement.
when they get around to it, they'll.
Usually not too long, a couple months.
Okay. I remember that study when I was a regional
Yeah,
thing.
and, that also included the, Moreau master meter was part of that study.
Yeah, there's another question. That's part of that study? Because I was
Yeah,
wondering why we were paying for
it was
this.
funded by that.
Okay. Very good.
And, that's basically, complete now, substantially complete, and, as soon as we have, final completion, then we'll, turn it over to the town of Moreau. But we've been, because it's covered under the grant, because we're the grantee, we've been paying for it, and technically.
We know that going in, I think.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
I remember discussing that. Anybody else?
No.
What's that?
Okay, motion to approve the warrant.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Next, is C, the approval of the Halfway Brook Rural Watershed Recreation Plan. Any discussion on that?
I just had a question, Steve,
Yeah.
Dave. If this thing, say, I'll get back to, my thought of this whole thing is, our reason for getting into this is to try to curb some of the trespassing and the littering issues and the stuff that goes on in that whole area down there. If in 2 years from now, or 5 years from now, this thing's not panning out, it's gotten worse, how do we go about getting out from under the thing?
I haven't seen the plan, but in the original agreement, the city had the ability to pull the plug at any time for non-compliance with provisions in there, which was enforcement of trespassing, trash, and all that. So that was in the original unconditional, ability to pull the plug.
I've got a copy of the file, but I didn't bring it. There wasn't a lot of stuff, you had a couple of changes in there, that was about it.
Yeah. Kinda tweaking it a little bit to make sure that there was enforcement and adequate notification of any work. And they are providing a number of additional gates, which will help us to block off, some of the fighting access roads that are commonly used by people for, trespassing
Okay,
and
there's a
illegal
total of
dumping.
7 gates or 8,
Yeah.
something like that, I can't recall that.
And they did spell green wrong in there. There is an E on the end of green.
What's that?
Our last name is not spelled right in there.
Okay.
I didn't have a junior after mine either, so my dad did it.
I can probably get that fixed.
We gotta do it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any other questions about the thing?
Yeah, I have bid specifications. It says, a minimum of 3-ton vibratory roller is it used to compact the final surface. Usually they have to compact the, intermediate surface too. This is minimum 3 ton, compact the final surface. I don't think that's adequate, isn't it? Usually you compact the ground, then you compact the TSA, and several compacts. So I don't know where the big specification came from, but I think that it's inadequate.
It's just foot traffic, it's not,
Yeah, no, this is bicycle stuff. Bicycles tear up the surface.
It's the same as they already have on their, other trail.
Rush
that they
Pond
got.
Trail.
Yeah, Rush Pond Trail. Seems to work
yeah,
pretty well.
works fine, yeah.
I got one other question, in the three
Of
quarters,
course, maintenance of the trail,
yeah,
that's gonna fall on the town of Queensbury, however it works out,
yeah.
because it's their trail. We're all just licensing them to build it.
Okay, yeah, but this is bid documents, not.
Yeah, and that was the bid documents that Queensbury used with, to bid the trail work,
Yeah,
which is a description of how it's being done.
okay. And 3.7 is,
Yeah.
water quality monitoring, phosphorus, nitrogen and coliform. Doesn't include sediment and erosion like that. I know someplace else it says sediment and
Yeah.
control, but not in the
Yeah.
water quality.
Well, the water quality monitoring is for, storm drainage and tributaries entering the watershed property. So, you know, we are not asking them to monitor turbidity. And, which is, I guess, what you would do for sediment. When I asked them to add that provision, my concern was primarily, nutrients getting into the reservoir,
Right.
which is or the presence of contamination, from a failing septic system or something like that. So, you know, those were the items that I hit, that I thought were of the most concern. Not that sediment turbidity is not a concern, but, that's pretty visible, you know.
And that also goes back to the original agreement. One of the things that's being done here is the areas before that were the stream bed was being disturbed and causing the sediment and the turbidity, that's being addressed by the bridge. But one of the provisions in the original agreement was that if the banks of the stream or any other stream bed was disturbed, that was another condition under which the city could give them a notice to cure, in other words, fix it, and if they don't, the city can go in and fix it and charge them, or it could shut it down.
Okay.
So that's in the original agreement.
Okay. It says something about sediment control.
Well, what they've done is they put in, like steps and where there's any kind of, incline down toward the bridge.
Yeah.
And I know the ones on Rush Pond Trail work real good. It's just a timber that's set in there that keeps it, they actually slant it off toward the side. So anything does run down there runs off to the side. And it's got these steps in there to keep the soil from running out with it. It does a pretty good job over there. I went over and took a look at it specifically after we got
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about that.
Okay.
So, but they just got those on where it's going down toward the bridge or
Yeah.
with the traffic on both sides. Where it goes toward the bridge.
Okay.
And Soil and Water was also involved in the process from Warren County. They came down and did a study, and then most of the erosion deterrent in places was their suggestions. That's how to handle it. So. And the placement of the bridge also. They thought it would be the best spot for the bridge.
Any other discussion?
I've been looking for it, I can't find it, and I swear I read it when I sat down with this to take a look at it first time through, where it said, I think it said something about, you know, walking, biking, whatever, but there was a parentheses of like hiking or something, like walking, parentheses hiking, or hiking, parentheses walking, something like that, and then biking / mountain biking. And this, am I wrong in that this is gonna be a paved trail?
Well, it's
Or no?
gonna be, crushed stone.
Yeah, okay.
It's not gonna be asphaltic or
What
concrete.
do they call that?
Item 4.
Item
Item
4.
4?
Yeah.
I don't know where that is, and maybe, I can't believe I made it up. I really thought I read it, cause it seemed to me like if I was at the trailhead reading that, you know, like stay on the path, and like, oh, you can hike and mountain bike in here. And like I can't, my mind instantly goes to like, oh, that's that little path I see beaten down off the trail, going up to that mountain peak, like that just equals that to me, and I don't know how it couldn't for anybody else. I just thought that was
But
kind of.
there are gonna be specific instructions at both ends of the trail saying you must stay on the trail.
Yes,
You know,
yeah, and I saw it. I just thought that was really contradictory because it sort of.
I didn't pick it up, Chris.
Well, I can't
I'm
either,
sorry.
which is why
Well,
that might be
sure.
crazy. I swear I read it, and I don't know where it is.
Plus, there's gonna be gates at all the trails off that.
It's in here that, permitted uses include walking, pedestrian use, and biking, including mountain biking.
What are you reading? Is that, what document is that though?
That's the
3.1.
watershed recreation management.
Oh, it's under 3.2. Alright, so I just can't read? I'm staring right at it, including mountain biking. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know, including mountain biking to me means you're off trail, and that's what mountain biking is, and, you know, if you got a 10-speed or a mountain bike, you can use this trail, you don't have to say mountain biking for that, and I to me, that just implies question, or, what did you say? You know, it involves that, or invokes that.
So we could take the word mountain off if you want.
Yeah, biking, pedestrian use and biking I mean, that to me covers it, like, you stay on the trail, you can use your bike if you want.
Yeah, we can even,
Just no motors on it,
We can
you
ask
know.
them to do that.
we can take that out of the thing and, you know, make part of the resolution and remove that verbiage from the.
To say biking.
And I thought too, the equestrian thing, I don't wanna ride through or step in an equestrian's aftermath, but aren't there provisions for that, and wouldn't that be a great place to put a horse through, or is there something I don't understand?
Well,
Their droppings would be,
horses could add to the nutrient load on the reservoir.
right. But don't they usually have, for people that do more urban riding, isn't there catchment accessories that they use, or is that not a thing?
Well, I suppose there are ways to solve an equestrian problem, but since it was our watershed and it's easier to just tell them no, horses,
Yeah, right.
that's
Pete,
the
can I
approach
see
we
that?
took.
Yep, I got you.
Because, you know, we're allowing people to take their dogs or cats or other domestic animals for a walk in there as long as they keep them out of the water. But we're not allowing horses.
Mhm.
And, you know, some water supplies where they allow trails, they don't allow any domestic animals. So we're kind of in the middle of the range there.
Sure.
Yeah.
And once you involve horses, you open up a whole can of worms of, is the parking lot big enough to accommodate a
Right.
truck and a horse trailer? And what are the rules? I mean, and the liability goes up tenfold when you include horses. I mean, you know, there was an incident a couple years ago in Greenwich where somebody brought a stallion to a parade, and there were mares and heat at the parade,
Hmm.
and it,
Oh, Jesus.
it was a mess.
Mhm.
So you don't wanna go there.
Did not go well.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I was curious about.
Any other discussion? Look for a motion for approval,
As amended?
as amended.
If you just say biking, that doesn't exclude mountain biking?
We're taking the word mountain out.
Yeah, but then,
What we're trying to
it
say.
does
we already
restrict
got
them to the trail.
Yeah, they have to stay on the trail.
And if there is a problem, we're gonna tell the town of Queensbury they have to address the problem, and if they don't address the problem
okay.
adequately, then we shut down the trail.
So this contract says, May 20, or June 20th start. This already started?
Yes,
Somebody-
they,
They've started preliminary, they piled the stone up.
yeah,
The contractor
In
that they hired,
anticipation.
he did part of the Rush Pond Trail, he's a landscaper, and he bid it so he could do the work when he's slow, to keep his crew going. So they're gonna do that, and Skemmerhorn, I don't know if we're supposed to mention his name, they donated all the material, hauled it up
sure
there.
he'd be happy, yeah.
Yeah, he should be happy, but anyway, he donated all the material that's up there, and he hauled it up there same thing, when his guys are a little bit slow. They hauled it up there, stockpiled it.
Oh, okay.
That was part of keeping the cost down, so.
Well, you know, we're talking about biking, mountain biking. We've got the expert right over there. Larry's the biker. How would you interpret that, mountain biking on the trail? Does that mean
It
you go?
means you keep to the trail. It means you don't bushwhack.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of,
Yeah.
no matter how you're moving, it basically says in that agreement, you stay on the trail.
Right.
So I don't think it's a problem removing the
We'll
word.
just remove it, I don't think it's an issue.
All right, so approval of the amended resolution.
You got another question?
No? No.
I'll move the motion.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Yes.
Next is the award of the RFP CGF 20-05 for professional engineering services of gravity collection sewer system infiltration and inflow study to Arcadis.
Hi. We received 4 proposals, and this is a $100,000 engineering planning grant. So it was not about the best price, but it was about making the best possible use of the $100,000 that was available to us to get us the most information possible. We received 4 proposals, and they were all good proposals. But as we reviewed them, we looked at, was it a well thought out project approach and schedule? Did they look creatively for alternatives and suggestions on how to proceed? Did they have a plan to maximize the city's use of available grant funds and making sure that the city was able to maximize our contribution using in-kind services with our staff, our vacuum excavation truck, providing traffic control, etc. So, upon reviewing all the proposals, we like the proposal we received from Arcadis. They had done some preliminary work. They presented some good alternatives, and they provided some flexibility in the various tasks, where if we gather the necessary information more quickly, we would reallocate the funds to do a little bit more of something else, et cetera. And they had a good plan for MWBE work, as did all the consultants. And they also had a good plan for helping to maximize the city's use of our resources. Pardon me. So, you know, based on that, we felt they had the best proposal, and I recommend award to them.
I got a question. This resolution says $100,000, and the project budget says $120,000.
And the $100,000 is the engineering planning grant, pays for the engineering work, and it's 80% funded, and the city is responsible for that $20,000.
So there's not a conflict between 100,000 and the
Right.
budget?
And you know, our goal, as I said, is to provide that using in-kind services rather than out of pocket.
Okay.
So that's why that so it's not inconsistent. It may be a little confusing.
Any further discussion?
I'll move the motion to,
Okay, Peter makes a motion. Second? Chris? All in favor?
Yes.
I've got something to add to resolutions. So, by way of memory, a few years ago, Glens Falls Toyota wanted to expand their building, and in doing so, they would be on top of the sewer line that went through the middle of their property. So as part of an agreement between city and the company that, or the entity that owns the land, it was agreed that they would relocate it, and there's some other terms and conditions. But one of the terms and conditions was that once the project is over, which it is now, the city would pay for a survey to have the new easement established, and then the city would abandon the old survey. So All Points Land Survey, that's done some other work in that area, I requested a proposal from them to do the work, and the proposal is $1,700 to do the deed research for the subject parcel and adjoiners, field location of property line and manhole structures on the subject parcel, computations to determine property line locations and easement locations, prepare a written description for the easement around existing manholes through the city of Glens Falls and the dealership property. He's requesting a retainer of $850, and for that's a total project cost of $1,700. And as I said, this water sewer was obligated or agreed to cover this cost when that was relocated.
Okay. This is a relatively small amount of money, and it doesn't fall within the requirements even for multiple quotes.
Right.
So we can just pay for this if the board concurs. I don't even think I need a resolution.
I just can't.
Out of our professional services budget.
He wanted me to sign this and send it back, and I wanted to get approval before I signed it. It's the proposal. He just, to proceed with the work, he needed the agreement signed and sent back, so.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And just jumping on the bandwagon with adding resolutions. I received a recommendation this morning from F&W Forestry on the timber sale number 77. They put out a conservative estimate of the value of this sale of about $33,000, and we got a very good price on it from F&W Forestry of $73,000.
Motion to approve?
And, yeah. And, you know, they're reliable, they've done good work, they'll be using subcontractors we've worked with in the past, and I do recommend approval of this.
It's not, no conflict with, Peggy Erin Road, timber sales, for the watershed property there.
This timber sale does, adjoin the trail, but we're leaving a substantial buffer zone between the two parts of the work. And our, trail agreement and the management plan both allow us to, perform logging operations across the trail and continue our normal, operations and disrupt the trail if necessary. But in this case, we're establishing 2 log landings so that they don't have to haul across the trail. And, we're, providing a buffer zone to help protect the trail from the logging operations.
Okay, thanks.
It's probably a good possibility this will be completed before the trail anyway.
And sometimes these guys take a while.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. They do have up to a year usually to complete the harvest. In this case, it may go pretty quickly because my understanding is that they are looking for the poles for utility
Oh,
poles.
that's right, too, it's a,
Yeah.
utility poles, right?
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
I'll move the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, discussion, Steve, you got anything you wanna discuss?
No, except that during the pandemic thus far, we've been able to maintain close to normal operations with our staff taking precautions. And we've been doing a pretty good job with keeping up with maintenance activities at our facilities, as well as complying with our wastewater discharge permit and making good water for the people, for our customers.
Okay.
I was curious about the other night, tornado night there. What do we do? We have to bypass or big ones?
We had 2 bypass, I'll call them surges. They were covered within 1 bypass period. And do you have that number handy, Larry?
83,000.
83,000 gallons. And we have actually, as part of the
It's the signature of the storm has a lot to do with that.
It seems like a low number.
well, we've been working on that.
Yeah, that's great. I thought mostly they're over 100 most of the time, 100.5.
No, we go through a lot of summers where bypasses are in the 20 to 30,000 range. A lot depends.
Historically, not just in the last couple of years, but.
Well, historically, since the long-term control plan work,
Yeah, right.
the volumes have gone down.
Sure. Showing that
Right.
was awesome stuff to have done.
And And again, this is 83,000 gallons, and one of the mandates or one of the goals that we're trying to achieve with the gravity sewer I&I study that we just awarded is elimination of those surges of up to 100,000 gallons, which will knock out a very large percentage of our bypasses as they're occurring right now. Now, if we get saturated ground or frozen ground and snow on top of it and a lot of heavy rain, there's not much you can do with an old system like this that's going to prevent the bypass. But we'll be able to greatly reduce the volume and the number of bypasses by catching these smaller ones.
Great.
You still having issues with flushable wipes?
That's, as they say, ongoing. Yeah.
You had something on the Facebook page,
And on the city's webpage.
the city's webpage.
We'll,
this Friday.
we'll put it on the website again.
Yeah.
And pin it to the
Especially now that wipes are becoming more available again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So we don't have any personnel issues right now.
Good.
We're pretty well staffed up, and we haven't had any vacancies created or occur.
You don't need an executive session?
No. And, what do you wanna do about the workshop meeting?
Do you have something to go over?
Well, you know, the usual, reports and,
Well, we'll wait until next week to see if something comes up.
Okay.
All right, so we got a schedule for June 15th, but we'll wait and see, and then we'll let everybody know if we decide to postpone.
July 6th is back at 6 o'clock, that's right?
Or do you wanna have it at 2 or?
I'm good with 2.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so the
Me
meeting
too.
on July 6th will be 2 p.m. All right.
Right.
Motion to adjourn.
So,
All in favor?
Yeah.
aye.
Good job.
Okay.